You talked when you should have stayed quiet. Someone disrespected you, challenged you, dismissed you in front of others. And instead of holding the silence like a weapon, you opened your mouth. You explained yourself. You defended yourself. And the moment you did that, you lost. Not the argument. The war. That's the modern man's disease. Not weakness of the body. Weakness of the tongue. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in recorded Japanese history, 61 duels, 0 defeats, understood something that modern psychology is only now beginning to prove with data. The man who explains himself submits. The man who stays silent dominates. This video is not a therapy session. It's a field manual. By the end of it, you will have the exact protocol Musashi used to psychologically destroy his opponents before the blades ever met. And you'll know how to apply it today. In offices, in relationships, in social hierarchies where the sword is replaced by words, by status, by who blinks first. Stay with this, all the way through. Zanshin. Write that word down. In Japanese martial tradition, Zanshin translates literally to remaining mind or lingering awareness. It's the mental state a warrior maintains after a strike. Not before, not during, after. The blade has passed. The threat may be neutralized, but the warrior's awareness doesn't collapse. It stays, persistent, alert, present, like a fog that doesn't lift. Most people confuse Zanshin with simple stillness. That's wrong. Stillness is physical. Zanshin is psychological. It's the state where your presence continues to occupy a room even after you stop speaking, where your silence has weight, where your calm reads to the threat detection systems in another person's brain as controlled danger. Here's the thing. When you feel disrespected and you scramble to explain yourself, that's not a character flaw. That's biology. Your brain interprets social rejection as a survival threat. The amygdala, the brain's primitive alarm center, fires. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Your body wants to defend territory, and your mouth becomes the weapon it reaches for first, because, in a social hierarchy, verbal justification evolved as a submission display. You're not arguing. You're signaling, I am afraid of your judgment. Over-explaining is, at a neurological level, prey behavior. Now understand the flip side. When you stay silent, something disturbing happens inside the other person's brain. Their threat detection system detects a signal, but receives no data to process. No emotional escalation, no defensive body language, no verbal output. That vacuum of response creates what neuroscience identifies as an amygdala hijack, but this time in them. Their cortisol spikes. Their nervous system fills the information gap with fear. They begin interpreting your calmness not as indifference, but as threat. Because in the social hierarchy, the entity that doesn't react is either indifferent to the outcome or is absolutely certain of winning. Either reading destroys the aggressor's confidence. Silence is not passive. Silence is a psychological mirror. Whatever hostility they direct at you bounces back and hits them. Now let's go deeper. There are 3 distinct types of silence as weapons. The first is tactical silence. Short, deliberate. A 3-second pause before responding to a provocation. Just enough to break the rhythm of the attacker's expectation. Most social aggression relies on a quick reaction. You deny them that, and their script collapses. The second is emotional silence. This is refusing to match someone's emotional temperature. They escalate. You don't. They raise their voice. You lower yours or say nothing. The contrast alone signals psychological superiority. In nonverbal communication research, this is called emotional asymmetry. and it is deeply unsettling to the person trying to provoke a reaction. The third is strategic silence. This is the long game. Days, weeks, removing your energy, your attention, your validation from someone who feeds on your reaction. This is the silence that breaks manipulators. They cannot maintain their narrative without your participation. Dark psychology practitioners and social dominance researchers alike confirm this. The withdrawal of attention is perceived by the nervous system as abandonment and loss of control. And for personalities built on control, it is devastating. But none of this is abstract theory. Musashi didn't read neuroscience papers. He learned it in blood. April 13, 1612. Funajima Island. The stretch of water between Honshu and Kyushu, Japan, in the heart of the Edo period. Sasaki Kojiro was already there. He'd arrived early. He was prepared, disciplined, and dangerous. His technique, the swallow cut, a drawing strike of extraordinary speed, had made him famous across feudal Japan. He carried a nodachi, a blade so long most men couldn't control it. He controlled it. He stood on the beach and he waited. Musashi was late. Not slightly late. Hours late. He arrived on a small boat, still carving his wooden bakken from an oar as the vessel crossed the water. He'd reportedly slept in. He ate breakfast. He took his time. And when he finally stepped onto that beach, Kojiro was already burning. This was not an accident. Musashi described in the Book of Five Rings the concept of controlling the psychological terrain before combat begins. This principle resonates directly with what Japanese aesthetic and martial tradition calls ma, the concept of negative space. Pause. Gap. It is the deliberate use of space and time as a force. In music, it's the silence between notes. In architecture, it's the empty room that makes the occupied room feel larger. In combat, it is the waiting that makes your opponent fill the silence with their own anxiety. Musashi weaponized Ma before a single swing was thrown. Kojiro, by the time Musashi stepped off that boat, had already been fighting for hours inside his own mind. He shouted across the beach. He threw his scabbard into the sea as a theatrical declaration of commitment. He was performing. He was panicking in disguise. Musashi reportedly said, in the most documented accounts of the event, "You've already lost, Kojiro. A man who throws away his scabbard has no intention of surviving." And then the duel lasted seconds. Musashi's wooden bakken struck Kojiro once. Kojiro fell. He never rose. Now consider the tactical layer here. The duel at Ganryujima was not won in those final seconds. It was won in the hours before, in the silence, in the deliberate disruption of rhythm. Musashi understood the concept of kyojitsu. In Japanese strategy, kyo refers to emptiness or weakness, and jitsu refers to substance or strength. The principle is using the appearance of one to hide the presence of the other. His lateness appeared to be disrespect. It was discipline. His calmness appeared to be arrogance. It was total psychological control. He showed kyo, apparent carelessness, to mask jitsu, absolute strategic preparation. By the time Kojiro raised his blade, he wasn't fighting Musashi. He was fighting his own rage, his own ruined focus, his own shattered rhythm. The sword strike was just a signature at the bottom of a document Musashi had already written. Stop explaining yourself. Not occasionally. Not when the disrespect feels really extreme. Stop. Entirely. Make it a rule carved into you like a commitment. Here's what happens in your brain when someone disrespects you and you feel the pull to explain yourself. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational, strategic part of your brain, gets hijacked by that cortisol spike. You're no longer responding from strategy. You're responding from wound. You're defending your ego, not protecting your position. And every word you use to justify yourself confirms to every observer in that social hierarchy that you needed their approval in the first place. Musashi's Dokudo, the 21 precepts he wrote 9 days before his death in 1645, contains the line, "Do not act following customary beliefs." And later, "Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age." These are not just spiritual notes. They are the documented philosophy of a man who had methodically stripped his psychology of every dependency on external validation. He needed nothing from others, not their approval, not their reaction, not their understanding. That is the emotional immunity that Zanshin demands, not indifference as a performance, indifference as an architecture. You build yourself into a structure that does not require their reaction to remain standing. Now, understand the void. In the 5th ring of the Book of Five Rings, the Ku chapter, Musashi writes about emptiness. Not in the mystical, abstract sense that pop philosophy channels will sell you. In a practical sense, the void means the absence of fixed form. A warrior in the void has no predictable pattern. He cannot be read. He cannot be anticipated. And in Zen Buddhism, which deeply influenced Musashi's philosophy, the void is not a weakness. It is the most dangerous state. Still water reflects everything. Running water reflects nothing. A man who uses nothingness as his strategy has no ego to attack. You cannot wound what refuses to present a target. The modern application is direct. When a passive-aggressive person, a narcissistic colleague, a manipulative partner tries to provoke a reaction from you, they are fishing. The hook needs tension. They need your resistance, your explanation, your visible wound to confirm their power. The void removes the water entirely. They cast into dust. Nothing bites. Now, the drill. 3 seconds. Before responding to any provocation, any challenge, any attempt to destabilize you, train a 3-second full pause. Don't fill it. Don't soften it with a sound or a nod. Let it sit like stone. In those 3 seconds, your nervous system downregulates. Your cortisol drops. Your prefrontal cortex comes back online. You shift from reaction to response. 3 seconds. Practice it today. In traffic. In meetings. When someone questions your decision in front of others. 3 seconds of absolute stillness. You will feel the power shift in real time. Your silence doesn't just protect you. It reconfigures the entire dynamic. Stop looking away first. That's the first instruction. Not a suggestion. An order. Eye contact is the oldest nonverbal communication system humans possess. Long before language, sustained, calm eye contact signaled either total safety or absolute dominance. In the modern social hierarchy, it still does. The person who breaks eye contact first has, on a biological level, submitted. You don't need to stare with aggression. Aggression is readable. Aggression signals fear in costume. You need to hold eye contact with the calm vacancy of someone who has no doubt about the outcome. Soft, still, unyielding. The way Musashi reportedly stood on that beach while Kojiro screamed. Not reacting, not performing, just present. When someone is passively aggressive toward you, here is your protocol. Stop all verbal output. Hold still. Maintain eye contact. Do not explain, defend, or soften the silence. Let the pause run until it becomes uncomfortable for them. Then let it run 3 more seconds past that. You will watch their behavior change in real time. The nervous system of a bully, a manipulator, or a passive-aggressive personality absolutely cannot process calm, sustained, unreadable presence. It reads as dangerous, and they will back down or expose themselves fully. Either result works in your favor. Here's the thing about unpredictability. Silence is its foundation. The aura of danger that people sense around certain men doesn't come from aggression. It doesn't come from physical size. It comes from the impression that this person does not need to perform. They don't chase validation. They don't fill silence with noise. Unpredictable people are frightening because their decision-making cannot be mapped. And you cannot map a man who says nothing, shows nothing, and reacts to nothing on schedule. Silence is the structure that makes unpredictability possible. Without silence, every reaction you have is a data point. Every emotional display tells your opponent exactly where your edges are. Once they have your map, they can navigate around your defenses. Silence erases the map. Now, narcissists and manipulators operate on a specific fuel: your reaction. Anger feeds them. Sadness feeds them. Explanation feeds them. Even righteous, justified anger is still fuel. This is clinically documented in psychological literature on dark psychology and cluster B personality patterns. The manipulation cycle requires your emotional participation to sustain itself. The moment you remove that participation, the cycle collapses. Stop reacting to provocations. Stop explaining decisions you don't owe explanations for. Stop defending your choices to people whose approval means nothing to your actual life. Pull your energy back completely. Go quiet. Don't announce it. Don't explain the silence. Just stop. The narcissist, who cannot provoke a reaction, doesn't scale down. They escalate. Then they exhaust themselves. And then they move to an easier target. You won't be the easier target. Robert Greene, The 48 Laws of Power. Law 4. Always say less than necessary. Greene didn't invent this from thin air. He was documenting a pattern observed across centuries of power dynamics, across courts, across battlefields, across boardrooms. The pattern is consistent. Powerful people speak less. They choose words like a sniper chooses shots. Deliberate, rare, final. And when they stay quiet, the room fills the silence with fear, with projection, with respect. Greene writes that when you say more than is necessary, you inevitably reveal your insecurities, your anxieties, your need for validation. The more you talk, the smaller you become in the perception of others. This is not philosophy. This is a documented behavioral pattern across recorded history. Musashi understood this in Edo period Japan, 400 years ago, long before Greene formalized it. The Book of Five Rings was not written as a self-help manual. It was written as a strategy document for men who intended to survive. And its quietest lesson is this: the warrior who controls his expression controls the field. Now, the real question. You've been watching this video. You've absorbed the principle of Zanshin. You've heard how Musashi dismantled Kojiro psychologically before ever swinging a blade. You understand the amygdala hijack, the cortisol spike, the social hierarchy dynamics, the nonverbal communication protocols, the void, the 3-second pause. And now you have a choice. You can close this video and keep bleeding power through your mouth every time someone challenges you. Keep explaining. Keep defending. Keep giving your emotional reaction to people who use it as currency against you. That's one road. Or you apply this, not perfectly, not once, daily. You build the discipline of silence the way Musashi built his sword discipline, slowly, deliberately, without drama. You stop performing strength and start being it. The Katana Mindset channel exists for exactly one type of person. Not the man who wants to feel good about himself. the man who wants to become someone worth respecting. The strategies on this channel are not motivational speeches. They are field manuals. Every video is a training session. If that's the standard you're holding yourself to, subscribe. Join men who are building something real, not performing it for an audience. Walk away from the battles that don't deserve your sword. Let them wonder. Let them fill the silence with their own noise. Let them exhaust themselves trying to get a reaction you decided months ago they would never receive. The last man standing in any real conflict isn't always the loudest. He's the one who understood, long before the fight began, that silence was already the sharpest weapon he owned. Master yourself, or the world will master you.